Right now, Hunter Biden's federal gun trial is on a break for lunch, but before court adjourned, an FBI special agent took the stand as the prosecution's first witness. Prosecutors are using Erica Jensen to introduce digital evidence, including highly personal messages and images from Hunter Biden's laptop to show a timeline of his drug abuse. The prosecution finished its opening statement today by saying, quote, "Addiction may not be a choice, but lying and buying a gun is." Our team inside the courtroom says one juror appeared to get emotional during the defense's opening statement. CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez is joining us now from outside court. And Evan, I do want to ask you about the moment that juror seemed to get emotional when the defense was giving its opening statement. What more do you know about that?
Well, yeah, look, Jessica, this is about 35 minutes into Abbe Lowell's opening remarks, and I noticed that, obviously the jurors seem to be paying very, very close attention. A lot of them were taking notes, taking down notes on various aspects of what the prosecution was arguing and what the defense was arguing. And then one juror in particular, an African-American woman, was sitting there, it appeared very emotional. She grabbed some tissues from her bag, dabbed her eyes, dabbed her nose at several points. About 35 minutes into Abbe Lowell's presentation, he was at the time describing some of the circumstances under which the gun ended up in a trash can. Hallie Biden, who Hunter Biden was in a relationship with, threw the gun away in a trash can at a grocery store. That's where this juror started becoming emotional. We don't know exactly what her reaction is in regard to. We do know, though, that there are several jurors who were on this panel who described that they had family members who've struggled with addiction. They are on this jury, and so you can imagine that a lot of this testimony is going to be very emotional for everyone involved, not only Hunter Biden, but for some of the people who are hearing this case as well.
And Evan, what more can you tell us about the prosecution using this testimony from its first witness, which was an FBI special agent?
Well, so the special agent is here to help introduce not only some of the digital evidence that you pointed out, but one of the things they're doing, a lot of this is a big portion of the later part of the morning was hearing Hunter Biden's own voice, his audiobook. This is from his own memoir, where he describes his struggle with addiction, his struggle. He goes into rehab. I counted 8 times that the prosecutors listed on a screen for the jury between 2015 and 2019. 8 different times he went in and out of rehab. And the point that prosecutors are trying to drive home is that Hunter Biden had plenty of knowledge about his addiction, that he knew he did not qualify to own this gun because on the form that he filled out, it says you cannot be addicted to or a user of drugs. So this is sort of the circumstantial evidence that they're using because one of the problems here for prosecutors, obviously, is that they don't have any proof that on that day he bought the gun, that he was using drugs. Instead, they're showing that around the time in 2018, on October 12, 2018, that Hunter Biden was using drugs. And so that's what this FBI agent is driving home as part of that testimony. Jessica?
All right, Evan Perez for us outside the courthouse there in Wilmington, Delaware. Thanks so much for that reporting. Brianna?
Former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree joins us now. Tom, I want to get a sense of what you think of these opening statements here. First, the prosecution. They use quotes from Hunter Biden's memoir where he described his, quote, superpower of finding crack anywhere, anytime. Also a picture of a gun. There were pictures of drugs found on his electronic devices. And he closed the opening statement by saying, addiction may not be a choice, but buying a gun is. What did you think about that?
Brianna, I thought that the prosecutors did a very effective job in presenting their case. A lot of prosecutors will tell you that often the most compelling, powerful evidence you can present against the defendant is to confront him with his own words. And here they quoted from the audiobook. And in fact, they played Hunter Biden's voice in the courtroom so that the jurors could really hear it. I think that drove home the prosecution's themes very powerfully. I also thought they somewhat deftly addressed the whole addiction issue by making that point that addiction may not be a choice, but lying on a federal form is a choice, and that's the conduct for which Hunter Biden is being prosecuted.
And then, Tom, the defense stressed the word knowingly. in the charges against Hunter Biden, which is crucial here. The defense attorney, Abbe Lowell, highlighting that prosecutors left that word out of their opening statement. How critical for the case is it that prosecutors prove Biden knowingly violated the law?
I think that is going to be a critical point in this trial, and I strongly suspect that's actually going to be the primary defense that we hear from Hunter Biden's team. What they are going to argue is that even if he was abusing drugs at the time, he thought genuinely, in their view, that maybe he wasn't addicted to drugs, maybe he wasn't abusing them, and so therefore he can't be held criminally accountable for checking the box no on the federal form. I think it's a tough argument for the jury. I don't know if the defense has a whole lot of other options available to it. This may be the best they can do, but I think it's going to be tough persuading the jury that, well, when he checked the box, he didn't really realize that he was abusing drugs at the time.
What do you think about the way the defense really leaned in on the past trauma of Hunter Biden, sort of explaining some of his addiction and the root of it, including all the way back to the car accident in his childhood that killed his mother and left him and his baby sister and left him with a brain injury?
Yeah, I think that was a savvy move on the part of the defense. They are clearly trying to humanize Hunter Biden for the jury and really to present this gun purchase as just one event in a much larger context. Hunter Biden, obviously himself, has been very open about his struggles with addiction. And I think what the defense team is trying to do is really portray him as a complicated human being who struggled with addiction issues. Many of the jurors themselves have had issues with addiction or had family members who struggled with addiction. And so I think the defense is really trying to start building those lines, building those themes in a way that they hope will resonate with the jury and make them see Hunter Biden in a sympathetic light.
I want to get your reaction to something that we heard from maybe an unlikely person, Senator Lindsey Graham, who told the Huffington Post yesterday, I think any average American who's done their taxes like Hunter Biden would have probably faced prosecution. However, I don't think the average American would have been charged with the gun thing. I don't see any good coming from that. What did you think about that? Do you agree?
I too was surprised by that. I mean, it's kind of a break from the usual partisan warfare that surrounds these types of trial proceedings. And look, I think Lindsey Graham has a decent point in that these charges are filed, but typically they are filed as part of a much larger claim. They might be used as a way to, get leverage against the defendant that they want to indict for other issues. They could be used as part of a multi-count indictment, but it admittedly is fairly rare for prosecutors simply to charge the, false responses on the federal gun form as a standalone case like the prosecutors are doing here. And it's interesting that Senator Graham, who I'm sure is no fan of Hunter Biden, picked up on that point.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Tom Dupree, thank you so much for being on. We appreciate it.